Seven Heaven is just lay bets of $30 each on the 6 and 8, and the bets are only going to be active for the come out rolls. This means if the shooter throws a come out 7, both bets are going to win, just like the pass line. But if the shooter rolls a 6 or an 8, only half your bet's going to lose. It sounds good in theory, but does it work in the long term? We're going to find out today. I'm super excited for today's video because I have a ton of new information for you. I've even analyzed what would happen if the bots went back to the casino and played this strategy up to 500 times in a row. And at the very end, I'm going to go through my TrueScore, which is my rating system to tell you if this is a strategy that's right for you. Now let's dive in. Here's a replay of one of the bot sessions. So we started off, there's a come out roll, lay bets, $30 each on the 6 and 8. Our VIGs are going to be paid up front, so you can see that that's actually $62 that's been deducted from the bankroll. All right, shooter sets the point of 6. That means the 6 is going to lose the $30 on the 8. We're going to take that down. Our bets are only active on the come out rolls in this strategy. And there the shooter is 7'd out, never even made their first point. So we're going to go back up, $30 each on the 6 and 8, laid. And there's our 7, so we get paid on both of them. That's going to be a $25 win, $50 total. We're going to make the lay bets again. We do have to replenish the VIG there. And there's another 7, come out 7. The pass line is getting paid, and these lay bets are getting paid. This time the shooter sets the point of 10, so we're going to take everything down. So that's how the strategy works. Now we're going to go through the report. This is what you get when you order a custom simulation from me. There's a whole bunch of information. We're not going to go through it all today because I want the video to be relatively short. But let's start off with the simulation parameters. So we had 100,000 bots. We're doing 10 hands per bot. That's 1 million hands total, 8.5 million throws of the dice. Here's the link to Casino Quest, also in the comments below. Go watch their video because you're going to learn a whole lot more about the strategy than I'm going to show you today. Let's start off with the house metrics. $77 million bet, house take of just $1.5 million, and that's an edge of 2.016%. That's a low house edge. And you might be thinking it's even lower than I expected. This is the Wizard of Odds' webpage, and he's got the house edge for all the major craps bets. If we go down here, the lay 6 and 8, single star means the VIG is going to be up front. Our house edge should be 4%. Why is it only 2%? Well, there's two things going on. First thing is that this 4% is based on a $24 lay bet with a $1 VIG. That is going to have a 4% house edge. But in this case, we're actually making a $30 lay bet with a $1 VIG. And because the VIG is rounded, the actual house edge that these bots are experiencing is going to be lower. It's going to be about 3%, just a little north of 3%. The other thing that's happening is that 4% is based on just resolved bets. But our bots aren't always waiting for the bets to be resolved. They're taking them down once the point is established. And because they're taking them down, the bet is not always at risk. Our bots playing this strategy won 42.8% of the time, lost the other 57.2% of the time, and typically their loss was just $25. The middle 50%, this is the middle 50% of all the outcomes. The lucky ones in that bunch won $68. The unlucky ones, $104 lost. So 50% of the outcomes were between these two numbers. If we expand that out to the middle 90% of outcomes, the very lucky bots won $201. The very unlucky bots lost $214. And the absolute full range, the bot that won the most was $771. The bot that lost the most was $496. On average, it's $16 lost, but the way that you're playing, that can never be experienced by any individual. So I put it over here at the end. Typically, $25 lost. That's the typical outcome. 50% were more than that, 50% were less than that. This chart shows the distribution. So on the x-axis, we have the amount won and lost. On the y-axis, the percentage of bots. You can see it's a little bit of a bell curve. with some long tails all the way up here to, almost $800, $771 won. This is the $496 lost. Here, the distribution is just a little bit less than zero. That's really that $25 or the $16, depending on how you look at it. The effect of the house edge essentially is pulling that entire distribution towards losses so that the house can make their money. This is the session's win and loss magnitude. What we're seeing here is the average win when the bots won was $101. The average loss when they lost was $103. Very balanced, right? Very balanced win and loss sizes that we have here. Here's another new chart I have for you. I'm calling this the strategy risk profile. On the x-axis, how often the bots won between 0 and 100%. On the y-axis, how much did they win? So if you can see here, you can see, winning the all is $150 to 1. Winning the 2 and 12 is 30 to 1. The lay here is right here, just over 40% winners. And on average, it's winning basically the amount that it was risking. Sometimes it's easy to forget this. There's 100,000 bots here just living out their casino dreams. Here are some of the trajectories that they took. Here's one that's a typical trajectory. On the x-axis, we have the roll number. On the y-axis, the profit and loss. We start off at 0, of course, and then we have a trend line that shows what the expectation is given the house edge. You can see this one had some losses and ended up right close to that edge. Here on the unlucky, we started to lose about $100. Very unlucky went down to $200. And you can see the trajectory of the very lucky and the lucky bots. Average ended up, pretty close to 0. That's not a big surprise. So that was for sessions, but what about individual hands? How often does this strategy actually win on those individual hands? Well, this is interesting, right? 1 out of 4 is going to be a winner on those individual hands, but almost 35, almost 36% were pushes. So that's a pretty big number that are either winners or pushes. Less than 40% were losers. When it comes to how much they won and lost on the hand, typically it's just 0, right? Most of the time they're just straddling that 0 line. If they were lucky, it was a $17 win. If they're unlucky, $31 loss. That's the middle 50%. Middle 90% goes from 65 to 62. The most was 449 on a single hand. The most lost was $248. Notice that average, $2 lost. So even when you're at a 0 with the typical number, that house edge, that average just sneaks in there and gets you. Here's what that distribution looks like. You can see most of them, 54% are between that, 0 and 49 bucket. And you can see the rest of them. Very rare wins on this one. And what happens is those are the sessions with a lot of come out rolls that are having a lot of 7s during their come out rolls. And those are winning quite a bit of money here. On this side, these are those guys that are setting points of 6 and 8. And you're having to replace those bets pretty often. What kind of bankroll did these bots need to be able to play this strategy? Well, typically they needed $138 to play the strategy for 10 shooters. If they were lucky, they only needed 93. Very lucky, they only needed 62. The full range is between that 62 and a maximum of $541. Here's the return on outlay. Less than 20%, less than 1 out of 5 were able to double their money. 8.8% were able to triple. 4% were able to 4 times their money. And 1.7% were able to 5 times their money. Doesn't look like anybody was able to 10x their money with this particular strategy. Betting power. This is the one that you want to look at when you're looking for strategies that keep you at the table for a very long time. For every $100 that the bots outlaid, they made $521 in total bets. That ends up getting a middle of the road moderate rating for your betting power. For comp value, typically this is going to be about $749 in rated action. That can go up as high as, almost $1,200 at the 95th percentile. The theoretical loss for an individual session is $15. The daily theoretical loss, that's assuming 4 hours of play at 80 throws per hour, which is a pretty fast clip, would be a theoretical loss of $58. And at a 25% comp rate, that would render $14 in comp value. Table conditions. This is another interesting one, right? Because you're playing actually with the pass line. You're actually winning on those come out 7s. So you're playing with the pass line, but this strategy does prefer cold tables. You do want to have a lot of 7s, and that's how I classify cold tables. 70% win rate on cold tables. That drops to 44.2% on choppy, and just 14.4% on hot tables. Hot tables have rare sevens. Here are some metrics about the playing experience. Hit frequency, how many throws have any win whatsoever? That's just 4.9%. Not a huge amount of action with this particular strategy. 8.2% of the throws have any bets that lose. And hedge frequency, exactly zero. There's no hedging in this strategy at all. Volatility here, mild, small ups and downs with this particular strategy. There's not a whole lot of giant swings here. Next section is profit retention. I know you guys love this one. So 6.8% of the bots were always profitable. They won right up front and they stayed in profit for their entire session. 10% were down the entire session. They started losing money, never recovered. 29% were able to recover. So they started off going down, they were able to recover. 35.8% gave back. 17.7% mixed. They kind of crossed multiple boundaries here and there. We're going to go into a little more depth on the recovered and the gave back in the next section. Here are the stats on the recovery swing. Typically, the bots were able to recover $45. If they were really lucky, they were recovering $76. Very lucky, $124. And the absolute most that any bot recovered was $293. We can see that bot. I put it here. This is bot 35,406. You could see they just had this terrible run. And look at this. They did great. They just had a whole bunch of sevens and were able to make all that money back and end up with a very small profit. On the opposite side, profit given back. More bots were giving back their money, $48 typically. The lucky ones were just $20, unlucky up to $65. Very unlucky were given back $116. The absolute most was $305. And here is that example, bot 94,753. Look at this. They were doing great for a while and then just had a very bad session and ended up just with a little bit of a loss there. You can see some of the other shapes. This is another interesting one, right? They did okay for a while, then had a great session and ended up giving so much of it back. Here's the throws to profit information. I'll just show you this very quickly. So on the x-axis, we have the throw number, y-axis, the percentage of bots in profit. And you can see it climbs, but not very much. And all the way down at, 55 throws is where it kind of hits that 50% marker where half the bots are in profit. That's a very rare occurrence that really doesn't happen. If you look at this survival curve, this is how often the shooters actually survive to that throw number. It's very minuscule. So this isn't a strategy that's going to recover your money in a certain number of throws. Multiple times at the casinos. Probability of profit. Look at this. After one visit, 42.8%. That's what we saw earlier. 42.8% of the bots are going to be in profit. 10 visits, that drops down to 34.1. 20 visits, it drops down to 28.5. And look at these numbers. By 500 visits, there's a small chance that the bots are going to be in profit. 3 out of every 1,000 were in profit after 500 visits to the casino. You can see this information here in this chart. This is the very lucky to the very unlucky number. And then I hope you can see it, but right up here is the absolute maximum and here is the absolute minimum. And I'm going to show you some of these numbers here. So you can see in this range, you have, a decent number of positive amounts, but it really, really starts to go down. And you can see that even a little better here. So this is what we saw after one visit. Very lucky is between 201 and 214. We saw that at the top of the video. After the 10 visits, very lucky is actually higher, $517. But the very unlucky is a lot lower, $800. That increases even more after 20 visits. The very lucky was $631. After 50 visits, up to $713. But then it really starts to decrease. And after 500 visits, you'd be very lucky to have a $3,000 loss. You'd be very unlucky to have a $12,000 loss with this strategy. Here's something I've really been excited to share with you. So, is this strategy good for you? Well, this is our true score analysis for Seven Heaven. House edge, 5 stars. It's a low house edge. And as I said before, that's partially because of the bets that you're making, and partially because we're pulling down those bets before they're resolved. Profit and loss balance. This is a lose small, win big strategy. That's 4 stars. That's good. There's frequent small losses, but occasionally you're going to be able to win big. Sometimes we see the opposite on this channel, so this is pretty good. Volatility, mild, nice, steady, mild strategy here. Jackpot factor. It is limited. So good wins do offset a few bad nights, but it's hard to really break out and get to that big number. So just 2 stars on jackpot factor. Betting power is moderate, as we saw earlier. This isn't a strategy that is 1 4 5 stars where you're making a ton of bets on the same amount. That's usually from hedging strategies. This one is moderate, middle of the road. So who's it good for? These are the player personas. Comp grinder. This is a person who wants to get a lot of comps. They get 4 stars out of this. And a lot of that is because of the low house edge and the profit and loss balance and the low volatility here. And because betting power, moderate betting power isn't bad. It's not as high as some of the hedging strategies, but it's not bad. Entertainment seeker gets 3. And the reason for that is because entertainment seekers tend to want to occasionally get some jackpots. So it goes a little bit lower there. Jackpot hunter here, this is a person who just wants to win money. They get 3 stars. The reason they get 3 stars, their profit and loss balance is pretty good. Unfortunately, the jackpot factor, those really great wins are a little bit more rare to come. Sometimes they happen. Some of these were actually pretty decent wins for the amount that were bet. They end up getting 3 stars there. And the paycheck player. This is the player that wants to go to the casino, win a little bit of money, and then walk away. They get 4 stars here. A lot of that is because of the profit and loss balance, the low house edge, the low volatility, and the moderate betting power. If you want to play this strategy, $186 usually sufficient for 10 shooters, $279 nearly always sufficient for these shooters. If you want to read this entire report, I do make it available to my Think Tank subscribers. Go to thinktank.dicedata.info. I have the entire report up there. You can get immediate access and view this report as well as all the other reports that I do on this channel. Before I go, let me also mention that I have a new channel. It's called Roulette Reports, and I'm doing basically the same information, but I'm doing it for roulette. If you want to head over there and give me a like and subscribe, that would help me out a lot. I very much appreciate it. As always, have great luck at the tables, and thank you for watching.